Hi everyone, welcome to my hotel room actually, where I'm spending 2 days relaxing in Chicago before my Arcadia gig and Des Plaines concert tomorrow and the day after. I hope you're going to join me. I'm looking forward to these 2 concerts in the Chicago area. Chicago has always been fantastic for the Moody Blues. Thank you all for keeping the faith, and I look forward to you all being at my concerts the next 2 days with John Davison from Yes and my 10,000 Light Year band. We are just singers in a rock.
The church was silent, that kind of silence that feels heavy, sacred, and full of memories. A cold winter morning, gray skies, and rows of mourners dressed in black lined the aisle as the soft notes of a piano echoed through the air. John Lodge, the man whose voice once filled stadiums, whose music carried generations through heartbreak and hope, was being laid to rest. For decades, he wasn't just a performer, he was the sound of an era. But on this day, the applause was gone, the stage lights were dimmed, and the only voice that mattered now was his wife's inside the church. The light filtered through stained glass windows, casting muted colors across wooden pews. People sat shoulder to shoulder, heads bowed, hands clasped, the air thick with grief and nostalgia. You could almost hear the ghosts of applause, echoes from a lifetime of music and memories that would never fade. At the front of the room sat John's casket, polished wood, simple and elegant, surrounded by white lilies and photographs that spanned his extraordinary life. One photo showed him as a young man, guitar in hand, smile bright and fearless. Another captured him decades later, still on stage, older but no less radiant, a symbol of endurance and passion. But perhaps the most touching photo was of him and Kirsten Lodge, his wife of so many years, laughing under a sunset somewhere far from the spotlight. When the time came for Kirsten to step forward, the entire chapel fell completely still. Every camera lens, every pair of eyes, turned toward her. Dressed in deep navy, the same color John always said brought out her eyes, she took a slow breath before speaking. And in that moment, even the sound of the rain outside seemed to fade. "I wasn't married to a legend," she began softly. "I was married to my best friend." Her voice trembled at first, but as she continued, it grew stronger, steadier. "People saw the music, the crowds, the lights," she said. "But I saw the man who would hum softly while making breakfast, who'd leave notes in my purse before every tour. I saw the man who believed love was something you practice every single day, not something you perform." Her words didn't sound like a eulogy, they sounded like a love letter, the final one in a story that had spanned decades. You could see tears streaming down the faces of those who had known John best, bandmates, old friends, even journalists who'd covered his career from the very beginning. Behind her, a large screen flickered to life, showing a video montage of John's greatest moments. Footage of concerts from the 1970s rolled alongside clips of him holding his grandchildren. The sound of his voice filled the church once more. Clear, beautiful, eternal. The same voice that had once carried through stadiums now floated through a sacred hall, wrapping everyone in both sadness and peace. Kirsten turned to look at the screen as John's song "Isn't Life Strange" played softly. Her lips moved along with the lyrics, the words she'd heard him sing thousands of times, now echoing like a whisper from another world. When the music faded, she placed her hand gently on the casket and smiled through her tears. "He used to tell me, when my voice stopped singing, let my songs keep talking. And I think they will, because John never really sang for fame. He sang for love." The entire room stood in quiet reverence. No one clapped, no one spoke, they just felt. Then, as the service came to a close, Kirsten stepped forward again with a single white rose. She laid it carefully on the casket, whispering something only she and John would ever know. Some said it sounded like "see you soon." Others said she simply mouthed "thank you." Either way, it broke every heart in the room. After her tribute, Kirsten placed a single white rose on the casket, not a bouquet, not a display, just one rose, a symbol of everything simple and pure that existed between them. The gesture was quiet, but it hit harder than words ever could. Cameras caught the moment, and within hours, it was everywhere, headlines reading, "Kirsten Lodge's stunning farewell leaves fans in tears." Social media exploded. Clips from the service went viral, millions of views in hours. Fans flooded the comments with messages like, "This is what real love looks like," and "She spoke like she was singing his final song." Others shared old interviews where John talked about Kirsten, calling her his safe place in a loud world. The tribute had touched something deeper than celebrity. Grief, it reminded people what it means to love fully and lose deeply. Even fellow musicians posted their tributes. One wrote, "John's music raised us, but Kirsten's words today reminded us why it mattered." Another said, "You could feel the love in every syllable she spoke. That's the kind of goodbye you don't forget." After the ceremony, as the hearse slowly pulled away, Kirsten stood on the church steps, eyes closed, whispering something no one else could hear. Maybe it was goodbye, maybe it was thank you, but whatever it was, it left everyone watching in tears. Later that night, she shared a post, a black and white photo of her and John holding hands from years ago. No caption, just a single heart emoji and his initials. Within minutes, it went viral. Thousands commented, "Still holding on, true love never dies. Legends leave echoes." The story of John Lodge's funeral became more than news. It became a tribute to eternal love. In a world that moves too fast, their story slowed everyone down, even if just for a moment. It made people remember that behind every stage light, every famous name, there's a heartbeat, fragile, human, and real. And maybe that's why this moment hit so hard, because in Kirsten's trembling voice and quiet strength, people didn't just hear grief, they heard devotion. She wasn't mourning a celebrity, she was honoring a soulmate. When she turned to leave, people stood not in applause, but in respect. She didn't look like a grieving widow, she looked like a woman who had loved deeply and was now saying goodbye with dignity. Outside, as the pallbearers carried John's casket to the waiting hearse, a small crowd gathered along the street. Fans stood silently, holding records, old posters, and handwritten letters. Some placed flowers on the car as it passed, while others simply whispered, "Thank you, John." Later that afternoon, clips from the service began to appear online. Within hours, the footage of Kirsten's tribute went viral. Millions watched her speech on TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook. People from around the world, fans who had never met her or John, found themselves in tears. Comments poured in by the thousands. "This is the purest love I've ever seen." The way she spoke, it felt like poetry. She didn't just say goodbye, she made us all remember what love really means. Even fellow artists and musicians joined in. Some posted tributes calling John a legend whose music never aged. Others praised Kirsten for showing the world that grief and grace could exist in the same breath. One well-known rock musician wrote, "You could feel every ounce of her love in that room." That was more than a eulogy, that was a masterpiece. In the days that followed, news outlets around the world picked up the story. Headlines read, "Kirsten Lodge's heartfelt farewell brings millions to tears." The most emotional tribute you'll hear this year, a love story that outlasted the spotlight. But for Kirsten, none of that mattered. She wasn't looking for attention or sympathy, she just wanted to honor the man who had been her anchor through life's storms. In a quiet Instagram post later that evening, she shared an old black and white photo of their hands intertwined, captioned simply, "Always my heart, always my home." That single post reached over 10 million views in 2 days. Fans began leaving digital roses in the comments, one for every song John had ever recorded. People weren't just mourning a musician, they were mourning the kind of love that feels rare in today's world, patient, enduring, and built on years of trust, laughter, and forgiveness. Kirsten's words had reminded them that behind every legend, there's a story. No spotlight can capture the story of what happens when the music stops, but the love keeps playing. When the screen showed footage of John holding Kirsten's hand during his final tour, she turned to look, her lips trembling but still curved in a small smile. "He used to say he'd never stop singing, and I believe he never will. His songs will outlive us all." After her tribute, Kirsten placed a single white rose on the casket, not a bouquet, not a display, just one rose, a symbol of everything simple and pure that existed between them. The audience, a mix of musicians, lifelong fans, and friends, wiped their eyes as the final notes of his song "Isn't Life Strange" played quietly through the speakers. Some swayed, others whispered lyrics under their breath. It was a funeral, yes, but it felt like a love story's final verse. And maybe that's why this tribute struck so deeply. It wasn't about celebrity or fame. It was about humanity, about a woman who stood before the world, broken but unbowed, and turned her heartbreak into something eternal. As one fan commented beneath a viral clip, "This wasn't a goodbye, it was a promise that love, when it's real, never ends." Because even in death, John Lodge's voice still sings through the memories, through the music, and through the woman who loved him long before the world ever knew his name. So what do you think? Was this the most powerful tribute we've seen, or just the truest expression of love ever spoken? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more real-life stories that touch the heart and remind us why love, in all its forms, still matters. Because some goodbyes aren't the end, they're just the beginning of forever.